Okay, so if we can start with basically, have you always wanted to work in the IT industry, or did you come to it later in life? Did you, so was it a plan, or you kind of arrived by accident? Different people have different routes in.
Yeah, I probably did want to work in IT. So I did a computer science degree when I went to university. Probably at the time that was largely motivated by, what's going to help me get a job once I graduate. I was very keen to just get a degree, didn't really have an interest in going on to further education after that. So I was very keen to figure out what degree, can I do that will get me a job straight after college. And certainly computer science at the time was one of those. So I got a job as an IT consultant straight out of university, and it was really good start point in the industry for me.
Okay, and from that point to where you are today at version one, it'd be good to understand, your career path, yeah, from that start.
I mean, it's a longer journey than I'd like to admit at this stage, to be honest. But yeah, so I spent about 10 years in IT consulting, working for PwC and then for IBM. Worked for a whole range of customers across Europe during that time. Was a really fantastic experience. Really enjoyed it. Learned an awful lot about technology during the course of those years. Towards the end of my time at IBM, I started spending more and more time working with people, how to develop people, how to train people, and really got very interested in that HR and development side of things. So when I left IBM, I did a full-time role in HR, working for Lehman Brothers at the time, and then I spent some time working in financial services in London. And again, all really good roles that I really enjoyed, and that enabled me to, I guess, move full-time into HR and people. I worked for Royal Bank of Scotland for around 5 years. It was during a very difficult time for the bank, as everyone will be well aware of. But from a development perspective, that was a really great time to learn. There was a lot of change, a lot of difficult decisions, a lot of difficult people related decisions to make. And so it was a really good time for me in terms of learning and advancement and learning what I was good at and my own development during that time. So, and then after I left Royal Bank of Scotland was when I joined version one here. We had just started up in the UK 10 years ago, and I took a role as HR manager. And that was the first role that I had here. And then I've been here ever since for the last 10 years.
Okay, and in terms of your current role, it'd be good to understand what it is. And I suspect there isn't such a thing as a typical day, but just give us a flavour of the responsibilities you have in the role.
Yeah, so I suppose during my 10 years here, I've spent a lot of time in HR, I spent time in sales, I spent time in strategy and planning, and all of that has led up to the current role that I have now, which is as Chief Operating Officer. So my responsibility basically encompasses all of the delivery that we have with our customers. So we have about 2,700 people who work in our delivery arm, and all of the managing directors of those areas would report up into me. So day to day, it's about, are our customers happy? Where do we have challenges from a delivery perspective? What do we need to do to resolve some of those challenges? And then I also have responsibility for our people team. So we have about 100 people working in our people team. So everything related to recruitment, development, and obviously being a digital transformation business, all of our work with customers is through our people. So our people function and the development of our people is a big part of my role in making sure that we're on track there. And then I also look after our ESG team, which obviously is something very important to us as an organization, but also to the planet and beyond. And it's something that we take very seriously. So that's a big part of my role as well.
Okay,
You
and
asked about a typical day. Yeah, that's a very
brilliant.
difficult one.
Yeah.
Typical day, I'm sure like a lot of people that you speak to, no typical day really, but certainly a typical week would hopefully involve maybe a couple of meetings with some of our customers. I like going out to visit some of our offices around the world to meet people there. What are they thinking about? What are they worried about? What can I do about it? And then meeting with the rest of the executive team and to make sure that we're aligned on priorities and really have our finger on the pulse in terms of what's going on in the organization.
Okay, and in terms of the challenges, I presume you've encountered, throughout the career you've outlined, would you have said? I mean, you mentioned you worked in the financial industry, for example, which again, a bit like IT, is perhaps, characterized as being quite male dominated. So I'm just wondering the challenges you've encountered on the way. Do you think some of them were gender related or just normal business challenges that anyone would face? Just as to how you'd characterize your treatment, what you've encountered, I suppose, along the way.
I mean, it's something that I've given a lot of thought to, I guess, over the years. Like you say, I have been in lots of rooms where I'm the only female there. But I suppose the way I've started to think about it over the years is less from a gender perspective and almost more from a personal characteristics, personal preferences perspective. And the genders can have particular biases when it comes to approach and things like that. But I certainly have started to think about it a long time, thought about it more in the sense of who's in the room, what are their strong characteristics, how do they like to operate, and how do I complement that? What's my role in this room? Not about my job title, not about my gender, but what can I bring to the table here? And I would say, historically, I'm often the quietest in the room. And again, that comes with a certain gender bias, maybe. But I think over the years, the people that I've worked with would say, yeah, you might be the quietest one in the room, but you're thoughtful. And when you speak, people listen because you've been taking in everything that's been happening. And therefore you have a valuable contribution when you speak. So it's feedback like that over the years has made me more and more comfortable with the role that I play, the characteristics that I have, and what I'm good at. And when I speak to a lot of female colleagues or females externally, that's maybe the route that I encourage people to explore. It's like, what role do you play in the room? What rooms are you in? Who are you in that room, and how do you complement the other people in the room? And I think when people really embrace that, all genders, not just females, but all genders really think about, what role do I play in the room, and then how do I make space for others who are maybe not the same as me in terms of characteristics. I think that's when you can have quite a strong team, when people are thinking like that in terms of how it all fits together.
And in terms of your career and where you started, where you are now, in terms of the overall sort of DEI attitudes to that, have you noticed hopefully a positive change along the way? And I guess what I'd ask is, how would you characterize the sort of IT industry, its current sort of situation in terms of how it's getting to grips with, or adapt, I don't know, adapting is the right word, but just its attitude to DI in the 21st, first quarter of the 21st century, I suppose.
I mean, I would say it's definitely come a very long way from when I started. So, even when I think about my class when I was in university, I think there was about 5 women in it. I think now most IT university courses are 50-50. Do you know what I mean? So just in terms of the throughput and balance of people coming into the industry, it's much better. When I look at our early careers program through which our graduates and new starts often come, that's definitely a lot more balanced than it was 10 years ago. And some of that is through our efforts as an organization, but some of it is just there are more women working in the industry. I do a lot with our women in tech group, and I'm often blown away, to be honest, when I meet them. I was with our group in Newcastle a couple of months back, and they just absolutely blew me away in terms of the talent, the experience, the drive, and it would make me very enthusiastic about the future when I meet groups like that. So I think we've come a very long way. There's always more room for improvement. I think it's very positive at the moment to see more and more female CEOs in big organizations across the world. I probably am a believer in if you don't see it, you can't be it. I think people do need to see leaders in roles and think, I could do that, I could be that. How do I get there? I do think that makes a big difference. So yeah, I would be very positive about the future, and not just from a gender perspective. I think when it comes to DEI, organizations are thinking a lot more broadly about disability, about nationality, and I think everyone, or maybe everyone is a slight stretch, but a lot of organizations are focused on it now much more than maybe 5 or 6 years ago.
And in terms of the rate of progress, are you sort of happy with that, or are there any things you think are needed just to sort of ramp it up? Because I think still it's under a third, I think, of people involved in the IT industry are females, for example. So that's still a fair way from 50-50. I say you just have to be patient and slowly it gets there, or do you think there are things that could be done to sort of speed up that process?
I definitely think there's more that can be done. I think a lot of it is, in a lot of organizations, it's not any one thing, it's lots of small things. I think some of it is about, how do you bring the whole organization with you? I think, everybody needs to see the benefit of a balanced organization when it comes to gender or ethnicity. I think that keeping women in the industry is something that needs more focus. There's been a lot of focus on getting women into the industry at the start, but the reality is that we do lose people along the way. Be it support for working families, more support for menopause, more support for disability. I think all of those things can result in people leaving the industry. So I think we'll see more focus on keeping people in the industry, especially at those challenging points in life where people might choose to opt out and do something different.
And in terms of your own, I guess, roles and responsibility, as you say, it's good to see more board level people, and you have some influence. Therefore, just be good to understand. And I think you explained earlier the way you maybe encourage people to look at themselves not necessarily as a female, but what they can bring to the organisation. But just your thoughts, I suppose, as to what your role is, both within your own organisation and maybe the industry more generally, the sort of responsibilities you may think you have, and how you can help drive forward the equality and the wider DEI picture.
I certainly feel a responsibility to represent both in my own organization and externally, and to raise awareness of the challenges. I think a lot of people want to support more female leaders, but don't always know, what does that mean? What does support mean? And for me, it is things like being cognizant of how people speak about those things when you're not in the room, or when there isn't a female in the room. Is that perspective being considered? Are you bringing that perspective into conversations where it should be there? So I think sometimes it's about just making the right observation or giving the right piece of feedback at the right moment to raise awareness in the right way. And then externally, I would spend time collaborating with some of our customers, collaborating with some of our partners on how can we raise awareness together. I think strong DEI, what's that phrase? A rising tide lifts all boats. I don't think it's something that we should be in competition with each other on, a bit like climate action, for example. I think it's about everybody working together. We're not in competition. If we can fix this together, everyone will benefit. And I would feel quite strongly about that on DEI as a topic, that it's, if we all work together on it, everybody will benefit from it.
And from your own experience, any advice to sort of organisations who are trying to address the situation? And do you need to be sort of really upfront and centre and not force it, but make it a big deal, or as a softly approach, a better way of doing it, and things like mentorship and more, ensuring that on job applications you try and get more diversity there? Just your thoughts, I suppose, as to the framework that can ensure or help ensure some success when it comes to the DEI focus.
Yeah, I think for me, what can happen in some companies is it's actually easy to get overwhelmed by it, because there's so many things you could do and so many things you're told that you should do, that you can actually end up doing too much and then maybe none of it really well. So I would say for me, it's about, picking a couple of things that resonate and are important to you as an organization. So, we, for example, have put a lot of work into our early careers programs over the last 5 or 6 years. We recently won the Princess Royal Training Award for it, because we kind of went all in on making that really good, because that was a way for us to bring more females and bring more junior talent into the organization. So I think for any organization, it's, what are the three things from a DEI perspective that are really important to you, that are going to resonate with your people, that are going to help you advance from a business perspective, and just focus on those rather than trying to do too much. I think it's about picking a small number of things and doing them really well rather than overstretching, because I think that's certainly, I mean, I've certainly had that challenge over the years where, you know, you can hear a lot of things, they're all the right thing to do, but the reality is you can't do them all. So it's about picking what's right for your organization, your industry, your team, and doing that really well. So I suppose my advice would be don't overstretch. You know, pick what you can be good at.
And I mean, is it good? I mean, you mentioned sustainability there. Clearly, everyone's heading towards net zero, and 2050 is a sort of the cut-off deadline. Do you think it's at all helpful when it comes to DEI, for example, to have a similar, you know, whether it's in your organisation or more generally? Do you think there almost ought to be a, you know, a year, a date by which, you know, equality is achieved, or do you just sort of let it more organically get to where it needs to be?
I think it's probably different things for different industries. I think some industries respond well to having a target like that. But there are downsides too. You know, you can end up in a situation where people say you're doing things for the sake of hitting a target, not because it's the right thing to do. So I think it's quite a careful balance to get that right. And I think it works really well in some organizations and maybe less so in others.
And maybe just in finishing, um, how optimistic are you that the direction of travel is not only good but at the pace required, or are the, I don't know, you wake up in the middle of the night and think, no, it's a bit depressing because it's not moving as quickly as it is, or just yeah, I guess your own feeling as to, you know, how positive the industry can, you know, be looked at when it comes to equality and wider DEI issues.
Yeah, I would be very positive. Mostly because I spend a lot of time with the people who are coming through, who are going to be the leaders of the future, and um, you know, I can see they're much more advanced in their thinking than frankly I was when I was their age. Do you know what I mean? There's stuff that maybe my generation have had to be more intentional about that comes just naturally to them in terms of inclusion, in terms of how they think about things. So I think, you know, how can we create the space for that generation to lead the way? Because I think they will be very strong leaders when it comes to inclusion, when it comes to DEI. And it's how do we create the space to listen to them and to let them influence how the industry is forming, how the industry is shaping up. We have a shadow board every year, which is a group of under 30s that help to shape our company strategy. And, you know, I'm always blown away by some of the ideas they have. And I think it is about how do you create the space for the people who are coming through, because I think they are very natural leaders when it comes to inclusion. So hopefully I think they will do even better than our generation have done. And yeah, that's the main reason I would be very positive is I see the people coming through and what they're capable of, and how they operate. And I think that bodes very well for the future of the industry.
Okay, it's been great to chat and some lovely insights into what's going on in the industry generally and at version one itself. And Louise, really appreciate the time you give me today. So thanks very much indeed. Thank you.
No problem. Nice to speak to you, Phil.